Okay, it's January 30th, 2016. I'm here with my dad, Glidden Neil Libby. Why don't you start where you want. Tell me about your family.
Well, hello. I think that, Jason's doing an oral history, and I think as an oral history, each of us are in many ways a product of our parents and grandparents. My parents were Ori Glidden Libby, who was born in 1902, and Mary Elizabeth Libby, maiden name King, who was born in 1900. Dad just missed World War I in that he was a teenager in 1916, 17, and 18, but moved on to college and went to Marquette University in the roaring 1920s and took dentistry. He met Mother Libby, who had gotten a degree in physical education, which for a woman in the at that period of time, a college degree was, something special. Dad played a banjo in a jazz band in a speakeasy where it was prohibition, of course, illegal liquor. He and Mother lived together, but before they did, they got married in a justice of the peace. But told nobody in Evansville, did not tell her parents. So things in morality has changed, I think, a little bit over the years, because subsequently, a year later after Dad graduated, they had a formal wedding in Evansville. Dad then went back to the small town Evansville and started a practice of dentistry. He was never really, I think, terribly happy as a dentist because during Prohibition he played a banjo, and during the Depression he, in addition to the dental practice, he had a mink farm, raised mink,
Let me,
and
let me just ask, how did he get to, your dad and Grandma Libby get to Evansville? Where did they grow up and
they grew up, Dad grew up in Evansville. His father was actually mayor of Evansville for 17 years, Pete Libby. Pete was not college educated, but very successful businessman, tobacco business, farming, land. He was a contractor. And Dad in college at Marquette met Mother, who was raised in Rensselaer, Indiana, went to school in Chicago and had a job in Milwaukee. Interesting to hear Father talk about a dental practice during Prohibition where extractions were $1, or he'd take chickens or eggs or just anything to pay for.
Let me pause that for a second. You gotta be kidding me. Will you turn on the AC, Max? We have a boat going by with some music. So, go ahead.
To hear Dad talk about practice in dentistry during during the Depression was interesting. Extractions for like $1, he would take, vegetables or chickens or anything. And one of the family stories is Hugh Robinson, which is Ruth's grandfather, came in one time, needed a lot of dental work done, and said that he would had a heifer. He would raise it and butcher it in the fall and bring him the meat if Dad would do the dental work. And Dad said sure he'd do it, and by golly, Hugh came through and they got a nice load of beef that year.
Would that have been before or after you were born?
That would be, let's see, Brad was born in 29, and so that would be during the Depression. That would be, my brother would be as a child. I was not born until August 10th of 1940. Dad had his practice in Evansville, and in 42 At that time, you know, the U.S. was at war and things looked pretty bleak. The Japanese had attacked us at Pearl Harbor. The Germans had secured the European continent. After Dunkirk, the Brits had retreated to the island, and at that time were through 41, and were standing alone. So Dad decided to leave his practice and volunteer in the Navy and get on a Navy hospital ship in the Pacific. Except at that time, 42, he was born in 1902, he was 40 years old, so he was old to volunteer. And the Navy basically said, sorry, you're too old, you're overweight, you're out of shape, you got gouty arthritis, sorry, Doc Libby, we can't use you. So he lost some weight, volunteered for the Army. And the Army took him, and he thought, well, I'll be going to Europe in a field hospital. Well, they sent him to Fort Riley, Kansas, and put him in a dental clinic, and Fort Riley had switched from cavalry to armor. And his job was to get new recruits ready to go overseas. And he stayed in that same dental clinic for 3 years. He tells the story about they planted a tree outside of his window, and he saw that tree grow to full size over the 3 years. And I was born in Evansville. The folks lived on Grove Street in Evansville in 1940.
So would that have been before or after Fort Riley?
That would, Dad volunteered to go into the military in 42. I was born in 1940, so I went to Kansas with Mom and Dad as just a child. I have the first vague memories I have would be in actually Manhattan, Kansas, where we can remember a little neighbor girl next door did me a haircut, and we all got in trouble over that. I imagine she butchered my hair pretty bad. I can remember my brother Brad Libby was quite a running back in high school. I can remember the excitement over some of his ball games.
Before that, I want to ask you about the military and Grandpa Libby's military experience. But it looks like Mom is home. So let's pause for just a second and
Okay.
let them come in.